It's good being the only astronaut-inspired character in the ANCAP community.
There's nothing wrong with the capitalism. Oh, hey, Esoteric. There's nothing wrong with the free enterprise.
Oh, god damn it.
What?
Nothing. I just forgot you existed for a moment there.
Yeah, I get that a lot.
Hey, you want to watch this video with me? He's responding to me, but he also mentions you.
Oh?
Yeah, remember when you debated with those alt-righters?
Oh, you mean the one where the moderators didn't remain neutral like they promised and piled on me and even brought in ringers to boot and didn't even have the common courtesy to link to my channel afterwards?
Yeah, well, apparently this guy was really impressed by that.
Stupid people are. That's why creationists keep saying Kent Hovind wins those debates with scientists. Okay, let's take a look.
One of the points of conversation that came up was to do with social media companies and the censoring of conservative posts and accounts, and more importantly, what to do about it. Old Hype and Sean calling for prohibitions against social networks looking to censor speech, to pass easements and so on.
Yep, because prohibition works so well, doesn't it? Especially when the problem here is caused by the government subsidizing these corporations to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars annually.
Google, for example, is subsidized to the tune of $732 million in the United States alone. And that's not even counting the local governments that have seized land through eminent domain to give to Google to build offices, closing down smaller businesses, and kicking people out of their homes.
So creating regulations, which will only keep competitors out of the market, is really going to help with the problem of social media websites and their monopolies, or perceived monopolies.
This has actually happened. Look at YouTube. It was created by 3 guys in their garage, but you couldn't create a competitor that way today because of the enormous legal team you'd need in order to deal with things like DMCA claims and ridiculous free speech violating laws in European and other countries. If you want to promote competition, you need to get rid of regulations.
And Shane Killian was arguing for a hands-off approach in which zero regulations regarding the protection of speech are passed. And Shane specifically brought up that the fall of MySpace and other early 2000s social networks would repeat itself with the much larger social networks that are much more integrated into people's lives today, such as Facebook, YouTube, and so on.
That's not at all what I said. They, just like Truediltom in this very video, were claiming that Facebook is a natural monopoly. I brought up an article written in 2007 that claimed that MySpace was a natural monopoly that Facebook could never ever compete with. And yet, look what happened. But since he's making that exact same point, I guess he had to deny what I was really pointing out in favor of a straw man. And in case you think MySpace is just an isolated example, remember when they said Internet Explorer was a monopoly because it came installed with Windows? Now it's Chrome that has 60% of the desktop browser market. IE and Edge together are only around 15%. By the way, here are a couple of names you might not even remember. Alta Vista, GeoCities, anyone remember them? 20 years ago, they were the unstoppable monopolies. Where are they now? Anyone remember Real Player? Tell someone from the late 90s they'd go obsolete and they'd probably call you crazy. But now, even Flash is becoming obsolete thanks to HTML5. Today's natural monopoly is tomorrow's obsolete technology.
And it's sort of already happening with Facebook. I mean, have you seen their decline in user base and ad revenue? Even with the $814 million in taxpayer subsidies, they're just barely keeping their head above water.
And I don't know of any young people who are using Facebook. Generation Z or the I generation or post-millennials or whatever you call them think Facebook is just a place for the old farts. They're on Instagram and Snapchat and Discord and other places.
Esoteric Entity, someone who is well known on this channel now, not too long after our debate actually, made a video reviewing the livestream in which he fired shots at me at the end of the video.
Oh, come on, don't take it personally.
My point was essentially this, and this video might seem pretty introductory, but we are dealing with a true economic illiterate here. I mean, most of you guys saw our debate, so...
Whether or not taxation is theft is not an economic question, since the debate at that point is whether or not it's justified to coerce someone out of their money, and that has nothing to do with the economy or how the market functions.
And as Esoteric pointed out in his reply to you, and as I pointed out in my video, Libertarianism and Property Rights from First Principles, taxation being theft is a logical argument. It is not based on economic theory. It's based on deontological ethics logically derived from first principles. To say that taxation isn't theft is completely delusional.
And really, just listen to yourself. You went from being a paleo-libertarian, I think, to a monarchist, and now you're unironically arguing that natural monopolies exist. You're a literal economic illiterate. I swear to God, you're going to end up devolving into a post-Keynesian or something ridiculous like that. By the way, you can talk about my debate performance however you like. The fact of the matter is, most of your fans, at least the ones in your Discord server, took my side on that one.
Ooh, that's embarrassing for him.
Not all markets are interchangeable. Not every firm is equally subject to this lemonade stand, invisible hand economics that ANCAPs are always talking about, simply because the value of each good or service to a consumer is different in accordance to a whole variety of things, some of which resulting from the good or service itself, and some resulting from the firm selling it, and some resulting from completely external influences.
Completely external influences. Now, that's a term vague enough that it could entail just about anything. Come on, Tom. I thought you were above weasel word argumentation like that.
Also, when last I checked, it was free market economists like Carl Menger and Ludwig von Mises that formulated subjective theory of value, which he's describing but going to great lengths not to name, you'll notice.
In the case of social media, it is clear that social networking services are a part of a particular market that qualifies for what is called a demand-side economy of scale. This is to say, this is a market in which the value of the product or service in circulation increases in accordance with the number of users of that product or service.
But again, you could say the same thing of MySpace, and people did, and look what happened. The fact of the matter is, we've always had social media on the internet. Actually, even before they started allowing the plebes on the real internet, we engaged socially through BBSs. Then it was services like CompuServe and Genie and Portal. Then when the internet started taking off, meaning once government got their stinking paws out of it, we had zillions of conversations on Usenet on just about every subject imaginable. Then when the web came out, we had chat rooms and web-based bulletin boards. What you're seeing now with Facebook and Twitter is just the latest in an evolving social order. It wasn't how things were 15 years ago, and it's not how they'll be 15 years from now.
People want to use the social networks that have the most users, or put differently, the most market share.
Except they don't. They want to use the technology that best allows them to socialize with the people they want to socialize with. Even as you had the exodus from MySpace to Facebook, you still had a lot of bands with a big following on MySpace. If you wanted to discuss bands, that's where you went. You go where your community is. It is not based on total number of users.
Which is precisely the reason why subsidizing these corporations can only create a temporary solution which is fundamentally unsustainable. Monopolies are still not possible even in this framework.
In this sense, a firm's market share in a demand-side economy of scale is self-sustaining, similar to a snowball rolling down a ski slope.
Then how come it hasn't been?
Well, that's simple. It's because the demand-side economy of scale argument assumes that the value to the customer is the same as the price, or market value, which is what you'd see if you actually read the article you cited, instead of just reading off of the Google description of it.
Here you can see the growth of Facebook in terms of users per year since its founding.
And ending 7 years ago. Gee, imagine that. Hey, why don't we look at a graph like that of Instagram? Wow. I wonder if he's going to say that Instagram is a natural monopoly now. Or maybe you could say that they're all growing like that, and the monopolies like Twitter are growing even faster. Ooh, that's awkward. As is the fact that Twitter ran at a loss of over $100 million in 2017.
Wow, this level of dishonesty is below you, Tom. You know full well that Facebook's user base has been declining in a downward slope since around late 2015, and it's all the media is talking about Facebook right now. There are companies which are closing down their official Facebook pages because Facebook is not profitable.
And let's think about this. Let's say Facebook users don't go to one other service, but go to, say, 3 competing services. Since they would be divided out among the competing services, Facebook would still show up in the statistics as having more users, even though there was plenty of competition and they were in no way a monopoly. But that's the thing about authoritarians. They can't think in any terms other than one single entity lording over everyone else.
It seems that if Facebook ever shares the same fate as MySpace, it's not going to be anytime soon.
Oh? And just what kind of warning do you get before a crash? Please let us know. Every investment advisor in the world would love to have that secret. Here's a hint. All of them keep going up before they start to go down. So what, you want to see it go down before it goes down? And again, none of your figures go past 2011. Huh, I wonder why. Ooh, awkward.
Now, the biggest predictor of an emerging demand-side economy of scale is the importance of networking within this market, such as online gaming or dating apps.
Which is exactly why demand-side economies of scale, as you've put it, can't form natural monopolies. Their profit is determined directly by usage, and if they engage in practices that their user base doesn't like, they'll lose profit.
Which would explain why many of them are being propped up with subsidies so they can function and are still seeing less in profits.
In fact, in this regard, it's even less practical for a natural monopoly to form in a network economy than it would be in the framework of a regular market.
It was hard to establish a service that was dependent on networking. It was just much harder to connect with people and to grow a network of users simply because there were no digital assets.
What are you even talking about? Then how did people organize in mass before the internet?
There were personals, there were party lines, there were radio call-in shows, there were CB and ham radios. Letters published in comic books were a way that fans networked. Those, together with literary magazines, spawned the first science fiction and comic conventions. The internet made it more efficient, but if you don't think that people were engaging in social networking before the internet, you're every bit as ignorant as you seem.
Assets which can be replicated instantly an infinite number of times at zero marginal costs, that ideally, whether they are used for capital or not, arrive one at a consumer experience that is pleasant, efficient, and frictionless.
And that's the main issue with your argument. It assumes that every experience made by every user is pleasant or frictionless, as if people don't form independent conclusions or have independent experiences. What if someone doesn't enjoy using the internet? What if someone enjoys using a different website? What if they don't like the layout of Facebook? What if people don't particularly enjoy having their information taken from them and given to the NSA by Facebook, which is the main thing driving people away from the platform currently? This argument assigns objective valuations and completely takes the individual's utility out of it.
Not only that, but since there was no such thing as the internet then, it's useless to use the argument that it's not as efficient as a reason why people weren't doing it. I mean, it's not like they knew. They were using the most efficient means available to them at the time, just like we are. 50 years from now, people might be thinking that the social media we enjoy is inefficient compared to whatever they'll have. All you're showing is that you have no concept of things changing and improving in the future. You're just like Julius Sextus Frontinus, who said that we'd reached the limit of invention and that there was no hope of future developments in the 1st century AD.
Nonetheless, a demand-side economy of scale means that as a firm's scale is increased, its value is increased in conjunction, and this acts as a barrier to entry, which is to say it acts as a barrier to other firms wishing to compete.
How does a website's size stop other websites from emerging? That doesn't make any sense, for the same reason that natural monopolies forming outside of a network market does.
Especially if they innovate a better way of doing things like Facebook did. This guy's thinking about someone else making a website exactly like Facebook instead of innovating a better way of doing things. Once again, all he's showing is his lack of imagination.
Forget post-Keynesianism. You're starting to sound like a full-blown Marxist now. In fact, if I were given the transcript of this video for just that part with no context of who said it or what the topic was, I would assume that this was an episode of the Young Turks talking about the market crash of 2008. In fact, that's literally just Kyle Kulinski talking about the stock market from like a week ago.
What? What? Hold on. So hold up. So this giant fucking thing that you have, like, libertarians and anarcho-capitalists treat as some sort of a god, right? The market, oh, all appease the great market, we love you so. The market is not an accurate reflection of the well-being of your average worker. That the market is not a reflection of the health of the middle class, the working class, regular people. That the market is a reflection of corporate profits and the mega rich. The elite class, I should say. They don't get that actually in the long run, it's better for you if working people have money.
To actually pull market share away from companies like Facebook is extremely difficult, which of course also means that these firms can charge more or lower costs below what would be optimal in a perfectly competitive market, or even make decisions such as partisan censorship of certain political opinions.
What baffles me about this is that you somehow think this makes it harder for competition to emerge.
All this means is that things are ripe for a competitor to come in and do things cheaper or without censorship. And hey, did you notice that he said the problem was they charged too much and too little? You have to be a Marxist to hold that insane contradiction in your head.
There is a switching cost in a demand economy of scale, which is a cost incurred by the consumer when they switch from one brand to another. Now, this switching cost may not be monetary, but it is a cost nonetheless. It takes time to create a new account and upload all your old photos.
Which is why absolutely no MySpace user did that when Facebook came out. Right.
Don't make fun of it, Shane. It's a real struggle. I still have internet PTSD from when I got kicked off Twitter, so I had to switch over to Gab.
And most of all, abandoned the network you had established on the social media platform you were leaving.
Wow, really? You're pretending they can't be in both places at the same time? People didn't delete their MySpace profiles 5 seconds after signing up for Facebook. They started using Facebook because it was useful while still using MySpace, abandoning MySpace only when it got too inefficient or there wasn't anything left for them there. I wonder how this moron thinks that any new innovations get made.
You're literally just describing making the choice between two different commodities and claiming that people can't do that. I don't think there's a single person watching this video who's never had a time where they had to choose between what food they prefer or what brand of product they think would best suit them. This is axiomatic stuff, Tom. In fact, you yourself acknowledged the problems with this argument in the video you did around a year ago critiquing the labor theory of value.
They aren't fucking subsidized, let alone to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars.
What? You're actually denying that Google and Facebook are subsidized?
Yeah, that's categorically wrong, as in, I could prove you wrong with the first page of Google search results. Either you didn't even try to do any research before making this video, or you're deliberately lying about it.
Take a look at this report from Subsidy Tracker showing Google getting $732 million from taxpayers. And according to this estimate from Silicon Valley Watcher, Google subsidies are in the billions once you consider freebies such as open access to internet backbones everyone else has to pay for. Or check out this report about states giving mega deals to Google, Microsoft, Facebook, Apple, and Amazon to build data centers in their states to the tune of $2 million per employee. According to this report, Google got $254 million in subsidies from North Carolina, as well as tax exemptions. Iowa gave them $36 million in 2013 and another $20 million in 2015, as well as tax exemptions. And the report keeps going. As for Facebook, they got $11 million from North Carolina, $18 million from Iowa, $44 million from Oregon, $147 million from Texas, and the list keeps going on.
You can actually find out what companies are subsidized via the Catalog of Federal Domestic Assistance.
The Catalog of Federal Domestic Assistance? Hey, moron! Most corporate subsidies in this country come from the states! Idiot.
Well, in conclusion, this is what happens when you go full Hoppian and start looking for libertarian justifications for blatantly authoritarian statist policy.
More generally, it's what happens when you start with your conclusion and try to rationalize it, instead of thinking through the logic to determine what the conclusion should be.
I'd give him about 6 months before he makes a video explaining something along the lines of why the free market isn't sufficient, or why social trust is more important than freedom, which is actually a large part of the reason why I believe, aside from the net taxpayer argument, that Hoppians tend to regress into full authoritarianism. They don't realize that social trust is a symptom of welfare state authoritarianism, and can only exist in a society where the state triumphs over the individual.
They're just the people who pay lip service to rights, while saying government is there to protect our rights, little realizing that government is largely what we're trying to protect our rights from.
In reality, you are supposed to secure your own rights, which is something that most even libertarians don't realize. You cannot expect everyone to always hand you everything. If everyone was entitled to demand things of other people, then no one would have rights, because no one would have exclusive self-ownership, which would mean that no one is actually a free person, which is exactly the reason why rights can only negate what others can do to you, not give you things to demand of others. Do you even think about the reason why you disagree with universal health care? Do you even think about the reason why you principally disagree with welfare? Even aside, voluntary social spending increases in direct correlation with a freer market, so it seems that people do provide for one another at higher rates when social trust is lower. The United States, Sweden, the UK, these are all examples of societies with high social trust, and they're not exactly the bastions of libertarianism in action, are they? I mean, I really hope that this video was just a fluke. I mean, we all make mistakes, and no one actually wants to see someone else fall into decline, especially when you, Tom, you've made videos that are good before. Anyway, I'll see you all next time.
Hey, thanks to Esoteric Entity for collaborating with me on this video. Check out his channel, and as always, like, subscribe, and support me on Patreon and Maker Support. See you next time!